out. So we needed to
Was
do
it
about
4 sections?
3 to 4 per segment. We've got 3 segments left.
Okay.
And then Jeremy, the last thing before we get to the last segment, you'll notice here that I put, if you wanted to put a special offer in there, like I'll pay for a home warranty if anyone calls from today's show.
Yeah.
I didn't know if that would, sometimes it might get someone to call, might not. And
I'll do 25 off of.
okay, and then I'll let you guys at the very end of the show
Can
give
I
your own
do 2
phone
offers?
numbers. Yeah,
One for buyers, one for sellers?
absolutely. So we'll leave like 2 minutes or so at the end of the show for both of you just to kind of put your name, phone number, website, and
Okay.
offers.
Okay.
Usually it's good to prepare before we get to the last segment. I'm going, oh crap, I didn't ask them. So, all right, cool. We're going to bring it back to segment 2 here.
Okay.
Welcome back to Rush Air Radio. I'm your show host, Chris Reshitar, licensed loan officer with NFM Lending. If you haven't listened to the show before, the goal of the show really is to excite, educate, and empower Charlotte teens to make sound financial decisions. I'm actually a loan officer, and this show is not all about mortgage loans, okay? So the good news is you can stay tuned or perhaps not fall asleep at the wheel if you're driving your car. But with that goal in mind, we've got a couple of guests on our show. Expert contributor Preston Salem from Home Inspection Carolina is back in the house, as he is every month as a sponsor. And we have special guest Jeremy Howard with Giving Tree Realty. We were just sort of wrapping up our intro, guys, to the show and kind of the housing market and how everyone got into our businesses and so forth. But really, Jeremy and I, and along with Preston, came up with really 10 mistakes that sellers can make when they consider selling their home, and perhaps not using the right tools, strategies, personnel, whatever it might be. So we're really just going to kind of go down our list of 10 things that we came up with that you need to consider if you plan on selling your house spring, summer, fall, winter, a year from now, 6 months from now. It doesn't really matter. These are things that you need to consider. And as always, if you have not been able or cannot listen to the show in its entirety today, it can be found on rushairradio.com. You can listen to this show back in its entirety. So let's go ahead and get started. So in terms of 10 mistakes that sellers can make when they go to sell their home, Jeremy, the number one thing that I thought that could be the biggest mistake is a seller not choosing to work with not just a full-service realtor, but also a full-time full-service realtor and real estate company. Would you agree with that statement?
Yes, sir, I would. There's a wide range of services out there as far as which real estate company you can choose. There's limited service listings that will just pay a flat fee plus put it in the MLS, and you're ultimately still responsible for paying a buyer's agent.
I call that list and run, by the way.
I like that. I like that. And all the way up to your full-scale, full-time real estate services was what I typically offer at Giving Tree Realty.
Perfect. And what are some of those differences, perhaps?
And we're going to touch on some of those. So if you were to hire, what you call a list and run type of agent, you're not going to get that expertise, those quality touches, professional photos, professional measurements, things that can ultimately hinder your home selling for really quickly and a lot of money.
And even someone to maybe let someone in the door,
Exactly.
showings, and
Exactly.
watch over the property. You might pay a flat fee that could be a little bit less, but then not really have your home watched over.
Yeah, so I liken it to picking out a doctor or a lawyer. So I'll tell people, listen, if I were sick and I didn't know what was wrong with me, and there's a specialist up in Philadelphia that maybe was a specialist and maybe whatever I had wrong with me, hey, I'm flying myself up there and paying whatever copay to my insurance I needed to get up there and do it, right?
Sure.
That's a full service realtor. He knows the ins and outs of maybe what disease you have. But there's plenty of other lower level maybe firms you can go to and along the city where you pay a $20 copay, but maybe they don't solve what your issue is.
Well, I can. It's very similar to that. I say it's like having surgery on your eyes. Think about this. If you were having surgery on your eyes, would you want the best doctor you could get or the cheapest?
Yeah.
Or the part-time.
I think I'm part-time doctor.
I wouldn't go to a part-time doctor.
But being that your house is the largest investment in most people's lives, I think that's a lot like your eyesight.
Yeah,
right.
Best you
It's a
can
good
get.
analogy. So we also talk about FSBOs every once in a while. That's called a for sale by owner. There are some sellers out there that consider that as an option. What can you share with our listeners related to FSBOs?
Well, I completely respect someone who wants to take the time and energy that really it takes to sell a home by yourself. And there's a couple things you need to look out for. One, do you have all the forms in place to protect yourself legally from a buyer or anybody looking at your home on the market? Are you going to market it effectively? And I can give you stats all day long from the National Association of Realtors. You know, if you look at nationwide, 2 like-minded properties in a similar price point, on average, when you sell your home by yourself versus when you list it with a realtor, you get 18% less market value for your home. So a lot of for sale by owners go, well, I want to save the commission.
3%.
Yes.
But you're going to lose 18%, so you're net negative 15% there.
And I've got a perfect situation for you. I had a client of mine last year, and we found a for sale by owner. And we went in, we negotiated the property. They still paid a 3% fee to myself for bringing the buyer. And the house ended up appraising for $30,000 higher than contract price. And had that person had representation, if they had called me, hey Jeremy, come list my house for sale, we would have maximized their market value.
Right, you would have done a market analysis and this can sell for 180 instead of 150.
Exactly.
And then boom, that guy would have netted way more money.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
Yeah.
Crazy. Well, that's a good example of maybe why choosing to work with a full-time, full-service realtor is really in your best interest if you're thinking about selling a house. Don't let number one mistake happen to you when it comes to selling your house.
Can I add something in on that?
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Well, also the realtor has knowledge of something here locally. If there's a rail line coming in there next year, the realtor's going to know whatever your house is worth right now, it's going to be a lot more a year from now. Knowledge of stuff like that.
I love your eye analogy here because instead of going to a cheaper eye doctor, this is like operating on yourself.
Yeah.
Hey honey, grab the laser.
Exactly.
Hold it steady.
Probably your most precious sense of the 5 senses. You're going to trust this to somebody who's never done it before, or somebody who's the best and does it all day long every day.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. All right, so let's roll to mistake number 2 that a seller can make when they go to sell their home, and that's not decluttering their home. So first of all, Jeremy, define decluttering for us, and then who can help with this?
Have a yard sale.
Yes. So we all accumulate things. So I liken it to going to my grandma's house. My grandma never liked the
Cracker Barrel gift shop.
Yes. Every wall is covered with a knickknack. So those personal effects that you've accumulated over the last 30 years, decluttering the space so ultimately a buyer can come in and see the flow of a room to its full potential. And as far as
orders, you ever watch this show?
It
Make
makes
them
me
watch
cringe.
that a little while. Get rid of some stuff here.
That makes me cringe. And as far as who can help with that, a full service realtor. I actually walk through with my clients and tell them, listen, don't take anything personally here, but if we move this out of the home, put it in storage, or you have it somewhere else in the house, somewhere where we can really open up the flow of a living room or a bedroom, so when buyers come in, they don't go, oh, wow, this place is cluttered, because ultimately you don't want to put up barriers between you and buyers. And if they walk away from the house and go, and it's happened to me when I'm showing homes, oh, well, it's too cluttered, my stuff won't fit in there. Well, maybe it would have, and they've eliminated your house because of the stuff you have in it.
Right.
People can't often see beyond what the bones of the house are. That's why everyone likes HGTV, because there's the grand reveal and they go, wow, that's amazing.
That was their house all the time.
But it's the same house, right? They just put different paint up and different furniture in the home, and voila, now it's a house they want to move into.
Yeah.
So they can't usually see that vision sometimes.
Well, Jeremy, is there some truth too in the fact that, from what I've heard, potential buyers want to see themselves living in the house, and it is very hard for them to see themselves living in the house when it's full of personal knickknacks of the seller now.
Yeah, that's 100% correct, because then ultimately it's somebody else's house,
Right.
Not theirs. And
Right.
like
So I think really the point there is it's not just taking stuff out that makes your house feel full, but sometimes it means depersonalizing, which means family photos or knickknacks or collections of cats or Hummels or whatever.
Velvet pink rooms, adults playing poker.
Exactly. So that's kind of depersonalized, and that can all be done at the decluttering stage. And I would assume also that if it's a serious job, that you've got some professionals you could recommend that could help somebody declutter as well. All right, cool. So let's move on to number 3. The third mistake that a seller can make when going to sell their home is actually not performing a proper deep clean. So I will share a story here, Jeremy. So now my wife likes a clean house. She actually enjoys cleaning, like, I don't know why, but she does, and that's okay. I'm happy she does because I get the benefits of having a clean house. But we went into a house many years ago, and she saw dirty tile in the bathroom. She saw dirty rings around the tub. The sink was dirty. Who knows?
Was this when you were over my house?
Yes, it was before you moved into your new house. But
Full disclosure here. No, I'm just kidding.
and she just literally said, I'm not buying this house, right? And I'm like, yeah, but it's the perfect yard and it's got everything that we need. And it didn't matter. She made her mind up that she was not going to live in somebody's or buy somebody else's dirty house, even though I'm like, it can be cleaned, right?
Yeah.
But like literally, it was that fast. Turned her off. She was right back out in the car saying next house. So I just probably stole your thunder there.
It's all right.
She's
But
never
talk
been in a
about
fraternity house.
that's right. Talk about a proper
You wouldn't even walk in there.
a proper deep clean. So what can you advise our listeners?
Well, it is really important to go through the house and get on your hands and knees, scrub those baseboards, that space behind the toilet that hadn't been touched in a couple months, getting that taken care of. And I actually provide some services where I'll actually send a maid service in to my listings before we put the home on the market because it's that important. And I'm an analogy guy, so I got 2 analogies for you on the deep clean. So we've all dated, right?
Mhm.
And when maybe a girl really likes us, hey, he's cute, he's funny, he's intelligent, not so much in my case. But I'm just kidding. But and all of a sudden we have her over to the house, and she goes, "Oh man, this guy lives like a pig. Good gosh!" And all of a sudden it's like maybe I'm not attracted to this guy anymore.
I think that happened to me a couple times actually.
Well, it's the same way with buyers.
Yeah.
When they go into a seller's home, they're dating.
Right.
They're dating you, and they're trying to see if they want to marry you, and that's put in an offer and buy the house. So that deep clean is really important. And so for people that aren't buying a house, let's use the restaurant analogy. We've all been in a restaurant and go, ooh, oh man, I don't know if I want to eat here now. I see the sanitation.
What's that grade? Yeah, what's the grade?
I see the sanitation score.
Even if it's an A, I'm looking at the number. That's a pretty low A.
Exactly.
I'm like, that was like me during high school. I just barely inched over the A. What was the hold up there?
Exactly. So the likelihood of you eating that restaurant again is pretty slim, right? Well, same thing with a buyer. They may walk through the house and they loved the online pictures. They wanted to come and look at it because it was unclean. They ultimately didn't want to make an offer and they moved on to another property.
That's a good analogy. If your house had a sanitation grade, what would it be?
Yeah,
It really
exactly.
needs to be an A if you want to sell that house.
That's right.
A high A, too.
Which is probably why you offer a maid service for certain people.
That's right. Just consider me food safe certified for real estate. Okay?
There you go. All right, so we're going to take a
Clean like
quick,
you need that security deposit.
we're going to take a quick break here. So please stay tuned. We'll be right back. We'll be talking again about the 10 mistakes a seller can make when they go to sell their home. We've only gotten to 3, so we've got quite a few more to get through. So you're listening to Rush Hour Radio, your show host Chris Reshetar. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.